You're listening to the Smart Nonprofit Masterclass with me, Jose Gomez, founder and CEO of nonprofitwebsites.com and Net Ministry. If you're a leader in a nonprofit organization who wants to reach more donors, volunteers, members, supporters, and the community that you're serving using the power of the internet, then I'm already waiting for you in today's episode. So let's get started. All right, let's dive right in. Today we're going to cover the 5 important things to consider when planning your nonprofit website. This podcast is specifically for organizations who either are brand new and you're just designing your first website, or you're an organization that's been around for a while. Maybe you have an existing website, maybe you've had a few of them, and you're just getting into the process of redesigning the site for whatever reason. A lot of times what ends up happening at this phase is that you have somebody internally who's volunteered to design something, or they've recommended someone that they know that kind of knows websites, quote unquote. And so you kind of go through the process of opening up an account and starting the design process, and you really don't know what to do. You're relying on them to tell you what to do. But there's actually a lot of planning that has to go into building a website. It's not just a simple thing of handing it to somebody and letting them just do whatever they want to do. It's not in the best interest of your organization. Certainly not someone who doesn't know your organization intimately. And even a volunteer who works, or even a staff member who works there on a regular basis, isn't necessarily equipped to create your worldwide presence. So this is an important podcast, I think, for a lot of reasons. Now, we also have, just before I get into the material for today, just want to let you know we do have a downloadable checklist at nonprofitwebsites.com that you could go to. Just go to nonprofitwebsites.com/resources, and you can get that checklist for free. It's we actually have 3 different checklists, but one of them is for planning your nonprofit website. We also have a full guide, a complete course on planning your website that comes with videos and everything that you can look into there at the site as well. But let's start on today's podcast and talk a little bit about these important things. And I've got 5 important things that you really need to keep in mind when you're planning your nonprofit's website. The first important thing has to do with strategic planning. Strategic planning of your website is not the job of your volunteer. It's not the job of a staff member who's just kind of volunteered to do the site. It's not even the job of somebody you've hired to build your website. It's the job of you, your board, your leadership. You've got to take the time to create the presentation that's going to end up being on the internet. Remember, this is your worldwide presence. This is the thing that's going to attract donors, volunteers, members, constituents. It's going to bring clients for you if you're an organization that serves a community. It's very important for executive directors and top organizational leaders to be very involved, at least in the initial phases of planning your website, especially when it's a complete redesign or it's a brand new site. So what I really recommend doing is getting everybody together, just going into a boardroom together. And I call this method the table method. If you've watched any of my material, you've probably seen me do this before. But you take a bunch of printer paper and you get away from computers completely and go to some place that has either a big table or just a big open floor, and start pulling one sheet at a time, writing the name, the title of a specific page on your new website. It could be the About Us page, or it could be services, or it could be community involvement, or get involved. But those are the types of titles that you'll want to put on top of those sheets of printer paper. And once you've done that for every page that you have that you want to create on your new website, and of course that's going to be an interactive discussion as you determine what those pages should be. After you're done doing that, what you'll do is you'll go back to each sheet of printer paper. Now you're wondering, why did I have you do that on each paper instead of just writing all the names down on one? Well, each paper you'll then pick up and start now bullet pointing the types of information, the types of images, the types of videos, the types of written content that you're going to want to place on those pages to really reinforce the message that you're trying to get across. And you're going to do this interactively. So everybody's going to contribute. What are we putting on the About Us page? Who are we putting on the staff page? Do we need bios? Do we need pictures? Those are the things that you'll do, again, over a board table, or an open floor. And you're going to do that for each page that you've written down on the printer paper. You've written titles down on printer paper. Once you're done, you're going to have essentially the inventory list of everything that you've got to get, author, find for your new website. So do this level of strategic planning and really think about a few things: who your target audience is and what the most important parts of your presentation are that you'll want to guide people to. And so these are really important things to do, folks, from the beginning. You don't want to, again, just give the website to somebody, have them design something pretty that isn't going to mean anything for you. I talk to a lot of nonprofits who say that the internet's really never worked for them. They've tried a lot of different things, and it just really hasn't worked. And when I look closer, what I find is that they've never really been involved in strategic planning. They've never really done an exercise like this to help them to create their website. So make sure that you do this. This is a really important thing. It's important thing number one. Important thing number two is getting the right domain name. It is really critical to find the right domain name, and what the right domain name means in most cases is something memorable. Don't use things with tons of abbreviations and acronyms. Those types of things don't work to be very memorable. Obviously, if you're just clicking from an ad, or you're just clicking online from a search listing, it doesn't matter what your address is. But when you're trying to market your domain name, trying to put it on your printed materials, trying to get people to remember to type it in, it's going to be very difficult if you don't make it something memorable. So again, let's say you have a homeless feeding organization, or you provide some type of service to the homeless community, then having something, for example, let's say you're in Tampa, having the domain tampahomeless.org goes a long way. Because you've now named your initiative, you've named your location, your service area, and it's a very powerful domain name. If you can use the name of your organization, it's always great, but a lot of times the name of our organizations are a bit long. If they're one-word names, a lot of times those domain names have already been taken. So think about thematic domain names. If you can use the name of your organization, great. First Baptist Church Tampa, that works too. So firstbaptisttampa.org, that works too. Another question I'm asked in terms of domains is, whether you should get a .com or a .org. And I usually recommend that you get both. People will remember the .coms better, although .org is technically the right one for nonprofits. Definitely get both. If you could just get one, get the one. But if you can, get both. For sure. And try to stay away from numbers, dashes, any kind of special characters like that. That'll people won't remember that stuff. They just, if you say, I don't know, homeless 2, they're not gonna think of typing in that number. And if they see it, they really won't remember it later. So again, you want to keep your domain name memorable. You want to keep it somewhat short, but it doesn't have to be super short. If it's memorable but a little long, it's okay. So if your organization is called Homeless Coalition, it's okay to be homelesscoalition.org. It's a little long, but it works because it's memorable and people remember that, especially if it's your name. So think about that, and of course try to incorporate something that speaks to your service area. So if you're a regional nonprofit, incorporating your city or your region. For example, like Somebody Cares Tampa Bay is an organization that I've worked with, and they name their service area in their domain names. So somebodycarestampabay.org or sctb.org is what they've been using for many years. But a lot of times, again, the initials are very difficult to remember. The next thing that I want you to keep in mind is to make sure that your website structure encourages your visitors, not discourage them. A lot of times what we don't realize is that we create either a structure, a menu, a way of getting to places from your homepage that is cumbersome, or it focuses too much on what we want to represent or present than what our potential audience wants to see. They're interested in what they're getting out of it. They're interested in finding out the information that they want to know finding the information about your events, reading an article that may have been published about you. They may want to find out more about you. They might want to learn about your mission. They might just want to go there to donate. And so creating a structure to your website that welcomes people to do the things that they're there to do, instead of really focusing on what you want to represent or present, is really, really key. Make sure that you've somehow structured your site into sections so that when people are in those sections, the information that's contained within those sections makes sense. So for example, in your About Us area, you may have your staff listing and you may have your mission statement. In your donation area, you may have your donor presentation, your donation forms or mechanisms. You might have information about pledges and different types of giving programs. So make sure that you organize your site into areas or sections that make the information within those sections a logical conclusion for somebody, or at least a logical assumption for somebody as they go through your site. The next thing that I want you to keep in mind, important thing number 4, is that your homepage is the cover of the magazine. Your website is like a magazine. It's got the pages inside and it's got this cover. And if you've been to the grocery store in the checkout line and you look over at the magazine aisle, you notice that the magazines for the most part have one compelling image on the front, and it's surrounded with headlines and taglines, information that's designed to tell you what's inside the magazine and entice you to open it. There's a reason why they do that. It works. And that's how your homepage should be structured. Resist the urge to put too much like mission information and too much just reading information on your homepage. Instead, create summary spots, just your next 3 upcoming events with a short title and summary. Don't put so little information that people don't know what they're clicking on, but put enough information, just enough information, to tease people to click. And that's really what that information is. It's more teaser information than it is full-blown information. But you do also want to make sure that you have that compelling image. And I always combine an image with with some type of wording, and I call that the impact statement. I define that as a combination of words and images that in 3 to 6 seconds tells people why they're there and why they should care. And if you do that right, they're going to look for the next thing that I recommend, which are called directives. And that's just areas of your home page that tell them where to go next. You might have a huge menu of hundreds of things, but you need to focus your homepage on the top 4 or 5 things. 3 to 5 things is what I usually recommend. 3 to 5 things that are most important on your website, that if they only go to one more page, you want them to go to one of these. So make sure you think of that homepage as like a cover of a magazine. Resist the urge to put everything on there, but just put the latest, greatest, and newest on that homepage. And lastly, let's talk about important thing number 5. Not everything needs to be updated, but some things do. So you don't have to worry too much about updating your organization's biography very much, or your founder's resume or bio. Those things are very infrequently going to be updated. Those are referred to as static content pieces. But you have dynamic content, information that will be changed on a regular basis that you do have to schedule. And you have to make a schedule to do this. If you don't make a schedule to update your rotating or dynamic content, then you won't do it. And your site, within a matter of months, will become an outdated graveyard of old information. So make sure that what you're doing is you're keeping up to date, identify the spots on your website that need to be updated, and put it on the calendar, and determine how often you're going to create content and you're going to update those specific sections. You know, planning a website is just extremely imperative. It's the most critical step for nonprofit leadership to be involved in. It allows the vendor to understand your well thought out framework and ensure that everything you need to say and do is said and done on your website. It's so important that you take the time to plan your website properly. And again, I want to repeat to everybody, if you need help with this, just go to nonprofitwebsites.com/resources. There's a free checklist that you can download. We've also got a few other checklists, one for content management and the other one's for marketing your website, which maybe that's something you'd be interested in. All 3 of those checklists are completely free. Go there, check it out. We've also got some full courses if you're interested in those. But today's podcast is really all about that. It's about planning that site and those 5 important things to keep in mind. Do you have questions? Do you want to know something? Well, listen, I want to invite you, if you're a nonprofit leader and you'd like to work together with other nonprofit leaders to share, best practices. Maybe you want to share some ideas about what you're doing. Maybe you're in that phase where you need advice. You need advice from somebody who knows what they're doing. Somebody who who has been a nonprofit leader for many years. I want you to go to Facebook right now, facebook.com, and I want you to join my private nonprofit leader insiders group. Just search for Nonprofit Leader Insiders on Facebook. It's a private group, and request access to it. I want to invite you to it. I welcome you to it. We only allow leaders, serious leaders of nonprofits. I mean, you've got to be involved in leadership on an executive director level or some type of management level. And our discussions in there are about mission, vision, and strategy. And it's completely free. I monitor it on a regular basis and answer questions and share information that I find out there, because I'm also a nonprofit leader myself. So that's it for today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you have any questions, join us in our Nonprofit Leader Insiders group on Facebook and post your question. I'd love to answer it. Until then, love to hear from you, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's episode of the Smart Nonprofit Masterclass. It's been a great episode, and I hope that it challenged you in some way and provided you with some tools to build, advance, and market your nonprofit. But before you go on your day, I want to tell you about a free resource. Are you the nonprofit leader who wants to raise money for your cause, get the message out, inspire and engage your board, increase the influence of your organization? Maybe you want to attract talented staff and volunteers, or keep your supporters better informed about your wins. Maybe you even want to just establish a great reputation in your service area and in your industry. But you find that you lack the funding you need, you don't really know where to go next. Maybe you're even scared of running out of money and resources before your mission is successful. Well, we completely understand your fight and how important your mission is to this world. We've worked with over 60,000 nonprofits around the world for the last 15 years, learning about how to build, advance, and market their organizations using the internet. We have a proven success formula that we've put together, and it helps organizations accomplish their mission, get more funding, find the right donors and volunteers, and ultimately get their message out around the world about what they're doing. So they don't have to shut down, suffer from insufficient funding, attract unreliable people, or ultimately fail their mission. We've got a free checklist for each phase of our formula, which we lovingly call BAM, and they're available right now at nonprofitwebsites.com. So go download what thousands of other nonprofits have already started using to become the organization that they've always really strived to be. And it's 100% free, so you can't lose. Anyway, thank you for listening, and have a wonderful rest of your day. See you next time.